a situation of negative interdependence, the objectives of one party are in fundamental opposition to the objectives of the other party. This means that the objectives of both parties cannot coexist, and that any gain made by one party are made at the immediate expense of the other party. These situations are symbolized by the pie metaphor. The idea of the pie that two parties have to share is that it represents a limited resource that cannot be expanded. Thus, if two people want to get the pie, they have no choice but to share it, and any pieces of the pie that one person receives will be pieces of pie that are considered lost to the other. In situation of perfect negative interdependence, the sum of the parties' gains and losses is zero. This is why these situations are called zero-sum situations. Let us illustrate this point by splitting the pie. There are many ways to divide a pie between two parties. One possibility is to give the whole pie to one party and the other party gets nothing at all. In this case, the first party gets 100% of the winning, loses nothing, and conversely, the second party gets nothing and loses 100%. If I calculate the sum of the gains and losses of both parties, I get a score of 0. The gains of one party are cancelled out by the losses of the other. In another case, one party receives 80% of the pie, so it loses 20. The other party, in this case, wins 20% and loses 80. It equals 0. And so on, until we get a reversal of the gains, where this is the first party that receives everything and the second nothing. Whatever the distribution, we can see that in the sharing of the pie, the sum of the parties' gains and losses, the so-called cumulative result, is 0. Another way of looking at it is to look at the correlation between the two parties' gains. In this case, the negative interdependence, the correlation between the payoffs is negative. This is what we see here. If I draw arrows that point to increasing payoff, we see that these arrows take a different direction for the two parties. There exist many situations of negative interdependence. Material good transactions are good examples. When you want to sell your car, for example, your objective is to get as much money as possible for it. The higher the selling price, the greater your gains. The buyer's objective, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. They want to spend as little money as possible on the car. The more expensive the sale price, the smaller the gains. Every euro earned by one party is therefore considered as an immediate loss by the other party. The situation of negative interdependence are dealt with what is called distributive bargaining. Distributive bargaining emphasizes demands, claims, and a highly competitive approach to conflicts and interpersonal divergences. And it produces agreements that are oftentimes tend to define a winner and a loser.